Welcome back to my channel, guys, and today we'll be looking at how to play the French defense. And here in this position, after when white plays e4, we continue with e6, d4, d5. This is the French defense initial setup, and here white can choose many variations. The most popular one is knight to c3. So first I'll be looking at knight to c3, and the knight is now defending the e4 pawn. There are three variations at knight to c3, and the most common one is bishop to b4, the Winauer variation of the French defense. Here now we're threatening to capture on e4. For example, if white, wait, what? Yeah, just a second. Something happened. So yeah, we'll begin again. e4, e6, d4, d5, knight to c3, bishop b4, and now if white plays knight f3, then we can capture on e4. So the e4 pawn is under attack. White saves it by playing e5. We strike back in the center with c5. This is d4 pawn now. Here white plays a3, and now we take, and here we can play knight to e7 or queen to c7. I'll look at queen to c7 first. Then the theory is queen g4, and here there are two variations. One is f5, means it's not a variation but it's a move played by Vasily Ivanchuk against Mikhail Tal. It defends this g7 square and attacks the queen. Now, if you were to capture an en passant, then knight captures on f6, and you've developed your knight, you're ready to castle, and you will develop all other pieces easily. So yeah, here we have at queen g4, there is another variation called the knight to e7 poison pawn variation. Here, white can choose with two moves: develop with knight to f3 or take the poison pawn. The most common line after queen g7 is to take. We play rook to g8. Now white can either go back to h6, f6, or h7, take on h7. Here if he goes to h6, then we'll be playing c captures on d4. Here white cannot capture back because of queen to c3 check, and after you block this you lose the rook. So yes, so queen h6, we play c captures on d4, you cannot capture back. So here Mikhail Tal, here knight to e2, Mikhail Tal played king d1, but knight to e2 is the theory, and now we'll be playing either knight to c6 or capture immediately. We'll play knight to c6. Now the e4 pawn is under attack. Here theory is to play f4, guard the e4 pawn. Here we'll play bishop to d7, ready to castle queenside. And here rook to b1, rooks always belong on the open file. We castle queenside. Here white can start pushing this h4 pawn or even take here. So he now will be playing knight to f5. The queen is under attack. He takes there, and now we can play knight c to e7. Now we're preparing to bring the other knight into the game, and this is the winner poison pawn variation. This is how you should play it. As you can see here, black has an advantage in this. And here after queen to c7, we have another variation: queen g4, knight e7, queen takes, rook g8, and queen captures on h7. This is the best move for white in this position. Now we'll capture on d4. Again, he cannot capture because of the check on c3. So he'll have to play knight to e2. Here, Mikhail Tal played king to d1, a great move. Now the point is, if you capture like this on c3, then we have rook to b1, and everything is safe. Your king is safe. If you try for some plan like bishop d7 and bishop to a4, then there's no use of it because this queen already guards the c2 square. So here, white will have an advantage after king d1. King d1, you do not want to capture on c3 with the queen. Instead, you can capture with the pawn. Now here he'll play knight to f3, just developing. We'll play knight to c6, bishop to d3, just developing pieces, and now preparing to play rook a d1 and push pawns on the king side. We play bishop d7, h4, and we castle long. Rook to b1, and now we have rook captures on g2 because there's no good way. You don't want to put your rook on this passive g1 square to guard that g2 pawn because the rook is nicely aligned with this h4 pawn, and the h4 pawn will be pushing to victory. So yeah, white doesn't want to do that. And just in case, at long castle, if he plays rook to g1, the rook is very passive. We can immediately play knight to f5. Here, the bishop is locked. The bishop can't do anything. And if you capture, then I capture back. And I have these pawns which are going to completely stop your g pawn from coming forward. And this h4 pawn can be easily blockaded with these rooks. So this is what happens after white plays rook to g1. Clearly not the best option. So queen to c7 after that, and here white can play knight to f3 and maybe develop pieces. We're going to play knight to e7, bishop to d3, and here we can either castle to safety. Castling isn't actually a good option because if we do, then we get bishop captured on h7 check. After we take, we have knight to g5 check, king to g7, and now queen to h5. You're threatening mate. You will have to play rook to d8 to free up some squares for my king. And here he can play queen captures on f7 check, king to h8, queen to h5 check, king to g8. And here either white can repeat moves like that. For example, if you play this now, king to f8, queen h8 does not work because of knight to g8. And now we can either have knight to h7 check, king to e7, and king to e7 loses the g7 pawn, and clearly this is not a good move. You don't want a castle over here, so clearly not a good idea. As bishop to d3, white clearly sets up a trap. Here you either want to play bishop to d7 or knight to c6. We're gonna castle queenside. White castles, we play knight b to c6. Here you don't want to go capturing because it completely loses this center for white, and as you can see, white now has triple pawns on the c file. We can capture that. Knight captures, queen captures, and rook to e1, finishing development. We'll go back to c7, and here white can either play bishop to g5 to get this over here, and we can play queen captures on c5 defending that knight. Now if he captures, then we can come back, and this is good for black. We're going to be castling either ways, attack on the king side, as you can see like that, and black is clearly better here. So going back, we'll play bishop d7, castle, knight b to c6, bishop to e3, just completing development. We're gonna play c4. No, c4 is not a good move, it closes the center. So we'll maybe capture here, takes, and castle long. And now he'll play rook to b1. We're gonna play king to b8. Maybe he'll try to double up on this file. Then we're gonna play f5. Now if ef into f6, then we can capture this, and we've got open g file for our rooks to attack. So I would say this position is equal. White has counterplay on the queen side here near my king, and black can create threats like this on these open diagonals. So this is the win hour variation. And now we're going to be looking at the advanced variation. And here at knight to c3, there's another variation which is captures the Rubinstein. I'll just show it because it does not have much, theory, and it's not so complicated. We're going to continue bishop d3, c5, d captures, bishop captures, castles and castles. So this is the Rubinstein variation. There are no complications in this theory. So this is another thing you can play. And now we'll be looking at the the advanced variation. e5, we're going to play c5, strike back in the center. Now we have c3 here, defending that pawn. Knight to c6, knight to f3, queen to b6, and here the theory is to play a3. And then we're going to continue with a5. Here we're going to stop that b4 from b4 to expand on the queen side. Here white can play bishop to d3 or bishop to e2. Bishop to e2 is my recommendation, because now we're going to play knight to h6, develop our knight. And let's say white castles, we're going to play knight to f5. He takes, we take back with our bishop, and bishop to g5. Now we're going to castle, and now we're going to have something like queen to d2, defending the b2 pawn, and we're going to capture on e5. Takes, and f6. Now we have attacked both pieces. Let's say he takes, we take back, and the knight goes back. So this is what is there in the advanced, the theory. And after knight f3, queen b6, there is another theory in the advanced variation, that is bishop to d3. White sets up a trap. If I capture, he takes, I take, he takes, and after I take with my queen, bishop b5 check just wins my queen. I've shown this in many of my games. So the theory is to take first, take, and now play bishop to d7. We're gonna prevent that bishop to b5 to come with check. Here you can either go back with bishop to c2, or you can bishop to c2 is the best move in this position, and I'm gonna play bishop to b4 check, bishop to d2, captures, and knight to e7. We have completed our development, and you don't want to go capturing pawns here, because once you do, you get rook b1, queen at 6, and rook captures on b7, and this rook is very active. There's nothing you can do to that rook. So we're gonna play knight to e7. We have either play b3, can either play b3 or rook to b1. We're gonna castle, and here bishop into h7 does not work. For example, if you take on h7, then you're gonna get king to h7, and for example, knight to g5 check. Oops. Oh, something happened. Just a second. Bishop into h7, king captures on h7, and here this is a different variation. I'm sorry, this is the winner. This is something different. Just a second. So yeah, this does not work in the advanced variation because it has its different issues. Now let me go back just a second. Yeah, just a second. Let me just redo all that. Queen b6, bishop to d3, gonna take, bishop d7, and let's say he goes back to c2. We're gonna play bishop b4, blocks, we take, he takes, knight e7, and here rook to b1, castle, and now bishop captures on h7 does not work at all. It does not work, because after king captures on h7, knight to g5 with check, we're gonna play king to g6, and there's nothing. White has got nothing here. For example, if you play f4, then I've got knight captures on d4, and I've got many pieces to defend here. I can bring my knight back to f5. I can get this knight here. I can get this knight back like that and remaneuver it to h6. There's nothing you've got here. White has nothing. So that's why, and this is the variation now that we just saw. After bishop to d7, there is a theory called castles. Now I've shown this in many games. He takes back. Now queen captures on d4. And now the theory is queen e2. We're gonna play e6, a6, bishop, because bishop b5 is bad. We're gonna play either knight to e7. No, he'll first develop with knight to c3. We're gonna play knight to e7. He's gonna bring his rook to the active files. We're gonna play. We're maybe gonna play knight to g6, and here there is no, knight g6 does not work because the bishop can capture and our queen will be under attack. Sorry, not that. We can go knight back to knight to c6. We're gonna have something different, like bishop captures on a6. We're gonna capture on e5. We're gonna get like bishop back to d3, and we're gonna play bishop to b4 now. Our queen is defended, so if he takes, we can take back. So this is the theory, and this is different theory. After queen e2, a6. If he plays knight to c3, we're gonna play. I prefer the move bishop to b4. After rook to d1, we're gonna play queen to h4, and here my one of my opponents played g3. I went back to d8, and he played queen to g4 here. And here there is a move, king to f8. My king is safe, and I have nothing. You don't have anything here. I'm sorry, the bishop is under attack. I meant bishop to f8. Go back with the bishop. Then bishop to g5. We're gonna play h5 either, and after take, we're gonna take back, and let's say bishop has to return back. And this is one of the theories of the advanced French. And these are all the main lines which I just showed, and I hope you enjoyed, guys. This video has been quite long, and I hope you learn to play the French defense very well after watching this video, and it's a great opening. So see you guys, and let's meet back for the 8th round of the 29th All India Open.